why should he be there in the first place? You a white man or white lady, right? Why should he be there? We're just trying to do it because there's no way a white people will form their distance and then all black boy.
The things that they do.
It's kind of easy for like
you can't even be racist. That makes no sense.
Man.
That's why you don't even have.
And then they call it reverse racism.
You don't even have those
Why do you have to put reverse?
No way.
Yeah, that's just
If you have those
that.
conversations with them at all, you are wasting your time, and that's the whole
They
point.
will never get it.
That's the whole point. They're not supposed to get it. They're supposed to waste your time. That's the desired result.
Man. Yeah, so I've been thinking about that, like,
And then they kind of influence your speech and thoughts. Their presence alone there will prevent you from saying things that you have not seen because you don't know how he might carry it, think he might see it just negative, no constructive way of saying it. Or he or she will see it like you are blackmailing or you are like, which isn't what you were doing. You were just trying to like call a spade.
Right. Just be yourself.
Just trying to go. So, I don't know.
Okay, so let's pick up from last week. We're somewhere around page 30. So we went through 28, 29, the New Kingdom Kings. Did everyone get a chance to look at that? No. All right, so let's write their names. And these are in order, so it's very helpful for us.
What's a big mama? Big mama.
What?
Big mama.
I don't know. I haven't heard from her today.
Check.
So nTr, also Amos. So this is the founder of the New Kingdom. The one who drove out the Hyksos in the first war of African national liberation.
Good. So this fight, we will fight this fight ever since.
Yep. And this is the reason why people aren't given this information, because if you're not, you'll think everything started with slavery. You understand? You say, oh, racism, it started with slavery and blah, and that's the whole point. So you'll have people who are Marxists and whatever. Marx was of the opinion that African history did not begin until Europeans brought African people into history, as was Hegel, as was Engels, all of these Europeans. So if you take up their viewpoints, you're taking up their false premises and assumptions. But as soon as you know this information, and nobody who considers themselves a Marxist knows any of this information, as soon as you learn this, that's when you start to see patterns like, this is just like you did this. The propaganda that you did is like the propaganda that started when the Greeks had taken over Kemet, where they started saying, oh, you Nubians and your god Amun, y'all are bad and blah, blah, blah. That this was propaganda like thousands of years ago. You understand? But that's the reason why we have to have access to this information. I did a what we call a teaching assessment for a colleague, and the colleague said yes, he was giving a summary of what they had gone over through the semester. He said yes, and this started in 300 BC with the Greeks, even though we know we have our own sources that say other things. Then he just went on, so it was kind of like a throwaway sentence. So it's like, well, what are those sources?
Yeah.
What do those sources say? You understand? It's like even, I was like, I think he's just even saying that just for my benefit. Maybe there was some, but one is, you know, to some degree you could look at these types of things like educational malpractice. The same way you can have medical malpractice. You know, some of these things are educational malpractice. To even know that there's something that's before the Greeks and you're considering yourself an educator, you are saying that there's something there, but you have no access to it, and you have no interest in getting access to the information.
I feel your pain.
Well,
Yet you will say, but we need to learn Arabic so we can access documents in Arabic.
Seriously.
This is what we're working with here at the Institute of whatever we want to call this thing that we're in. All right, but let's write the name. nTr. Does anyone remember Neb? And what is it? Não sou. Assim tira sem.
Neb.
Em tira quem tem.
Nubne ye isika koko.
Ai, ele não sou ele. Ogura. No, what did you choose? Okay, Ogura is like Lord of something, master of something. So how would you say something like Ogura? Like Lord, L-O-R-D.
Lord.
Lord Master.
Apato. Yeah, Apato.
Apeto.
Apato.
Apeto.
Yeah.
Apeto is like house.
Yeah.
So Apeto.
But it could mean other things too, like when you own an institution, like if you are kin to like a house, like so it's just it's like the master, the lord of Apato.
Apeto.
Yeah.
Very good, we'll take that one. So Neb Peti is usually translated as might, right? So the Lord of the might of Iti Amwanyura, Twine Amwanyura, Oria Amwanyura. Oria, that's
Oh, yeah.
You're showing off now.
You have two pens.
Huh?
Pen.
Yeah. Wait, do you need a pen or you?
Yeah, I need a pen.
Oh no, I just borrowed from him.
I just gave it.
and they have to be
I don't know, my own should be like, I don't know why.
It's very interesting that that same sound is in Kikongo. That's how, well, when I was first trying to learn it in Kikongo, I was like, what is this sound?
Yeah.
And it's not very common in the language, so you're like learning everything, and it's like, oh, everything is fine. You get to this, it's like, what is it?
What is it?
Yeah. No, I'll get it.
Yeah. And do you want Jerome? I know, guess what, Jerome? Who wants to write this one? Kira. And they have the vocabulary here on the right hand side. So petty, strength, might, all those types of related concepts. Petty.
Yeah, they translate spirit as
Say again?
They translate spirit as
Well,
how different is it from ka? Or it's still the same?
it's in the sense of like Osamai.
So this is in the sense of a summer.
Yeah. It's the only power now with the over equal. It's just my pa. Now equal it's a pa now, so it's a shrine. Right.
Just a summer. So again, it's
Yeah. Also known as Amos. Right? Amos. So this
How's it going? from Amos.
Yeah. So Ya is the moon, the deity associated with the moon, and Mus is born of. So someone who was born of the moon. And you have this element of Mus is born of, one who was given birth by. So you hear it in Ramesses, so Ra is the sun, born of the sun. Amos, one who was born of the moon. Amenmos, one who was born of the deity Amen, and so forth and so on. So if you ever hear the name, like my colleague across the hall, his name is Moses. So it's a cut-off name. So we don't know what the deity was that came in the front. So it had to have been some deity, Jehuti, Moses, like born of Jehuti, the deity of math, science, learning, writing, so forth and so on. And we'll see some of those names right here. Jesakare, so Jesakare, sacred, and then Ka is soul, and then Re is the sun. You find the same Jessa in the temple of Hatshepsut, where it's called Jessa Jesseru, the sacred of sacreds. And I actually want to write an article on what's called prototype theory. That's a theory that I use in my thesis. But I want to go into the ancient African origins of prototype theory. And the idea is that if you have something like this, all of these things are sacred, but in the middle you have the sacred of the sacred, right? It's like this is the prototypical sacred thing. So you find the same thing in Chi, you say Ahene Mohene, the king among kings, so you have this type of construction. But I want to go to the first written attestations of this type of idea, because this also comes up when we talk about who is black, who is an African, right? That we can have a concept of what that is. So sometimes when I ask the undergrads, I say, close your eyes, what do you think of when you think of an African? Then they start saying things, black skin, broad nose, thick lips, kinky hair. So they're just imagining, so what they're doing, they're telling you what the prototype is, for them in this particular type of example. Speaks in African languages, wearing African clothes, so forth and so on. But I want to look at this because it's relevant just in terms of going into the origins of this idea that you can have something that is more prototypical, then make it less and less and less all the way out to the borders. Like your guy yesterday, you're like, I don't think he's black. he would have started crying if you said he's not black. But he's somewhere around the fuzzy borders, right? Now anybody from the States would see him and know he's black.
Yeah.
But anybody from here, generally, they would never see him as black. Now, we would see it because look at his features, his nose, his lips, his hair. So you can see his hair is like a flat top, just like any black person. A European could never do that. It would be like dog fur cut up short, whatever.
So it means that you have to know the prototype, or you don't have to know it. You can just
There
guess
is a
from.
prototype, yes.
Part of the idea is that when you're talking about prototype, the prototype may be a cluster of features, or some may see it as this actual thing that exists in nature is the prototype. So if I say what's more prototypically a bird, would it be a sparrow or an ostrich, right? The reason why you may say one over the other, you would say, well, birds fly. If this one can't fly, then it's not as much of a bird. One of my colleagues, he said he was teaching Chi at a village somewhere, and he was asking the students, give me examples of a bird. He was saying, nah, I didn't have one. I said, oh, now feel much so to say, Asrawa, to say, Now, if you know, say now, competence like they said, what about the vulture? And it's just a Debbie. Competence now, petata. It's like this thing has been a vulture since forever. It's not now that you're going to come and make this thing into a bird. No. But he's thinking prototypically. You know, this thing is huge. It walks around on its hind legs and whatever. This is not what we think of when we think of, a bird. So this is the idea that some things are more prototypical, and generally it's thought of as a cluster of features more than pointing at this specific thing. Because it's like, give me the prototype of tall. You understand? Here's one guy who's 7 feet tall. Here's one guy who's 6 feet 5. All of them are somewhere in this gradient or spectrum of what tall is to me. But it's not one single person that is the prototype of tallness, right? And then even when you go into games, what are the features of games? Oh, something you win, right? Well, there are some things where it's like, we're just doing something that's fun. We're running around on the beach. No one won, but we're playing, So these are some of the things that come in. Well, all of that's coming back to the idea that the idea of prototypes can be attested, and we can find it all throughout, Kemet, the sacred of sacreds, the holy of holies, the this of this. Yeah. Okay, so we need someone to write Jessa Kare Amenhotep. And you should have this here. Jessa. No, it's not this, but it's probably one of the other. Jessa Kare. To make us so what kind of hero jet of Abibikasa be for you not to me to become? I work between us, every I usually do the reduction. I am before in our casa, and I say Kiswahili, and I say, be a beautiful house. We're there.
We share the Ama, say, Afri.
I also come. So this one, we need this in the airway. The Lord of the strength of the sun. Of the sun. The Lord of the strength of the sun. Mo. Ojaba. Alright, now we need Kepakari. Kepakari. Djibouti mess first. And then we refer to as utmost. I'm excited with this. Stella and J original.
Young baby.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah.
This is the
Wow.
It's like some ultimate painting, right? Look at how thickly you want to
wow. Big symbols.
Wow.
This is like the Kenga, the Temple of Dendera, what I've been wearing around my neck for the past 20 years.
The temple of Dendera, that's so true.
That's what my paper is coming out about. Time in the Black Aquarius. This is all the shit.
Yeah.
I don't know why we didn't donate this one to the Institute. No, he's got a couple of donations.
Those are posters. And informative posters. This is on a different level.
This on a different level. Oh yeah.
This is powerful.
This is
Now I can do a little here and you do what
This is the veve that they use for Vodun and Haiti. So each one, and then NCBD, the writing system from southeastern Nigeria that goes back 5,000 plus years.
I feel like people don't understand NCBD because from my art class, how we talk about it, it made it seem like this mistake, like, yeah, like sometimes someone can write in front of your door and then you step into it and it just vanishes, like, you know? Make it seem like something up to joke with.
But one thing, this is one of the points, that it's one thing to know that the language exists and people have writing systems, and that's about where we've gotten to for a lot of this. It's like, let's pat ourselves on the back and
Yeah.
right. There's another thing to access all of the knowledge that's inside of it, and that's where we are not at yet. I'm going to say this note too. This is historic. This is wow.
Like, it's powerful. When you look at it, you can see how powerful.
This is like, don't stop looking at it.
Yeah.
Let's deconstruct the images. What is he saying?
Mm.
Like, you have the circle, the dot, and the
Just so
middle.
I know that they didn't crash. Now I can do all that and you do all this.
What? You're still up there.
We did the unveiling and commentary. Let's come back in.
That's a good. That's good.
Did I give you the 3-volume series of ancient Egyptian literature? Sorry. But we need all of this in Evo. And we all of this in G. Well, in G. So one of the things that came up in that thread on BBC Mikasa was he was talking about Esperanto. Do you all know Esperanto?
No.
Right then, so great. Kepa is transformation. Ka is the soul. And then Re is the sun. So great transformation, soul, sun. So we're talking about Esperanto, which is this what would they artificial language, a created language based on Yiddish with a lot of Latin vocabulary in the lexicon. But it's basically like Pan-Indo-European created language, and it has somewhere between 1 and 2 million speakers, and between 1 and 2,000 native speakers where they were born, and that's what they speak. But it's created to be, you know, a so-called neutral language. Now the question is, how can you have a neutral language that's based on Latin? That was based on Indo-European, and the Afro-Hindi is basically a similar movement, but looking at based on Kiswahili and other African languages. Capital transformation.
This one is that the sun?
No, the Re is the sun. That's at the very end.
The ray is the sun.
Yeah. Even though you write the word for sun first,
Okay,
it comes last. It's because it's sacred. That's why you write it first. So is great.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Capital to become, transform. Any of those lines?
Spirit, nTr, sun.
Now, which one is the soul?
That's Ka and soul. Some would translate it as a Ka spirit, but we're looking at it. If we're looking in Chi, we would translate it directly as Okra. Right? So that way we can get around whether it's soul or spirit or all of these words that are meaningless in English.
What does that mean, actually?
Okra means Ka. It's the parts of the human that comes directly from Onyamin, the supreme being. So the Sum Sum is ultimately derived from the father, the Moja is ultimately derived from the mother, Okra is ultimately derived from the human being. Glue, for lack of a better word, that puts all the different parts together, keeps them together by virtue of the Nkrabya, which is the destiny. So that's the reason why all of these different parts need to come together is to fulfill the destiny. If you don't do that, or if you do something that's so despicable to your crowd that it goes away, then you either literally die or you die on another level. And that's what people say, I don't have a reason to live, why am I here? You know, basically they're saying that I'm not in alignment with my destiny, so why are all these parts together? Why would they need to be together if you don't have any orienting force that's pointing you towards them? All right, well, let the body go back to the earth, let the breath go back to the wind, let the spirit go back to the shadows, and let's try this over again because there's no point. What I wanted to show you is this. I was thinking about this based on wHm's talk about royalty and about Ma'at and about equality and things of this nature.
The transliteration, it's level, it's a transformation.
Yeah. Becoming.
How do you say that?
Become?
Yeah.
She's like, yo, I'm in Canada, man. I'm cold. Ask me about maple syrup, Mountain Dew.
Right, hockey.
Yeah.
Ice hockey.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing. This is again prototype that it can be based on environment and background.
I never knew about was the other language, and then the consciousness was like, what kind of a mitzvah I go to? That's like African consciousness. I never do like that, but I don't read. I just don't read. I say like I'm never going to meet that way. Anyway, when I was just like how do I meet that? It's my own thing.
This is not English class. This is Yeah, but I was saying that when I have a colleague, Dr. Nabi, who does what we would call field hockey. So hockey is just hockey, but then this is field hockey. So it was like, yeah, I'm going to play hockey. I was like, you're playing hockey? I'm like, what? How can you play hockey here? Because I'm picturing, where did you get hockey from? And he just said hockey. He didn't put any like adjective or descriptive. But I was like, you playing hockey? And then eventually it came up, he's playing field hockey. That hockey is hockey, but then here, field hockey is the hockey. And then when they want to do that one, they have to describe it and say, oh, that's ice hockey. And it reminded me of an article that was, this is all going back to prototype theory. What is the prototype for you? Where there was a guy from Florida who went to Canada on vacation. He was like, yeah, I've had a lot of fun here. I've been snow skiing and blah.
Snow.
I was like, snow skiing? What's that? That's the other. That's the only type of skiing there is. He was like, would there be any time where you would just say skiing without saying something? He was like, yeah, but that would be on water.
Oh, shoot.
So he was like, for him, water skiing is the default skiing. Anything else you need to have some type of descriptive. Because it's, again, what are the features of the thing that's most prototypical? And then once you start getting outside of that, then it's like a spectrum. You start shifting into other colors and the gradient.
But you know what? Up until this point, I never looked at hockey as something that can be played on the field or skiing and water skiing.
You know, when I went to Accra and we went by the hockey stadium and all was like, why do we have a hockey stadium here? And we were having a world championship game and it's literally empty.
Wow.
Christmas, you know, they're probably playing field hockey.
Last time.
Yeah, I was walking to Accra.
It was all good. Just more movement.
Is this dark?
Yeah, so no, like. Yeah, no, like, we're gonna have semblance, yeah. Is like change.
Right.
This is more like transmutation. I want like the actual, I don't really have the transmutation and the real translation.
Oh, we need the Ewe book.
Yeah.
Where is the book?
It's not
I didn't bring it.
Okay.
Can you put, yeah, the brown one that has the English behind it?
I thought that was England dictionary account.
That's what I thought. Because you said, why do I need Ewe?
But what's structural? It's structural anyway.
Yeah,
And what does that mean?
like change.
Oh, that's not trotro. We say trotro. Yeah.
All of this is just my scheme to learn Ewe. You think I want you to learn English, I just find it.
You're putting me to shame, though. I gotta learn.
I never knew we had every like English dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know
I
either.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is even an old one. There are others that are out there.
So, how do you say it?
I don't know how to put all this in there.
This one would have to be Droga. It has to be great transformation.
Yeah, that is.
Droga.
Yeah, the program. Then
This is
we had
Lufo.
Luso. Yeah, it's not the.
So, in the Ewe sense, the word for the sun would come last. So it's a great transformation. So Droga of the soul of the sun.
Okay, or the souls of the sun.
Yeah, when I get go well, over at the last part. It's only in nTr.
This is nice when you speak Ewe. It sounds very nice. It sounds, yes, very melodious. Yeah, just say this in.
I don't want to know like
This is like, yeah, it's much better.
And then when she's talking about it, I don't know, it's way down like.
Oh yeah, because our hours are different.
Yeah, that is another thing. Maybe fine out here. So what's the yeah, my God, Totogancho, Chu, the same thing for.
So this is what I'm looking for. So, you know, in the talks that Akuyama was giving, he was talking about how by its very existence, royalty is, what was he saying? That it's bad, it brings about inequality, because as soon as you are in this position, hierarchy, and everybody else has to be in this position. And it's interesting because if you look at the prophecies of Nefertiti, it looks at the ruler as the sole guarantor to make sure that Ma'at, you know, stays in place. And one of the ways that was done was by preventing the Asiatics from coming in, right? So This was one of the questions that I had that I wanted to ask him before he left that I didn't really get a chance to some degree, is that, you know, in his Shimsu he has non-Africans, he has whites, he has his distributors, a Chinese woman, whatever. If you look at the original text, that is what is seen as disorder, not, you know, the level of hierarchy, but the fact that they've come into the land is disorder. So it's a different take, but this is the text. It's one thing to say that this is how it was, or this was a concept. It's another to actually look at a text. So I wanted to look at this text. This is the prophecies of Nefertiti given in the court of Seneferu in the 4th dynasty. And it says, and this is talking about Amenemhat, right? This is the founder of the dynasty. Then a king will come from the south, Ameni, which is referring to Amenemhat, the justified by name, son of a woman of Taseti. And this is actually from the book that I'm working on, so I'm transliterating it word for word. Inside Hyrcanopolis, Upper Egypt, he will take the white crown, he will wear the red crown, he will join the two mighty ones. Asiatics will fall to his sword, Libyans will fall to his flame. So this is how you make sure that Ma'at is in place. And then these I have to put them line by line. So this one will build the walls of the ruler to bar Asiatics from entering Egypt. They shall beg water as supplicants so as to let their cattle drink. Then order will return to its seat while chaos is driven away. Right? So the Asiatics for African people at that time represented disorder itself. So if they come in, then that is the coming of disorder. The one who is responsible and who is able to repel them, if you look at Amos, if you look at Djibouti Mes, if you look at Ramesses II, the one who is able to repel this disorder from coming into the land of the black people is the ruler. So that's how we saw Ma'at. So it's saying order, and in the original text it's saying Ma'at. So, Ma'at, that's what you said. So this is letting you know it's going to be a statement. Ma'at, then order. So then order. Towards, eat. So this is come, to, seat at its position, its place. So it's then order will come into its place. This is Isfet, and that's what's being translated here as chaos. So Isfet, dirty, ruti. So chaos will be driven out, driven away. So when the Asiatics come in, that's the coming of chaos into the land. When you're able to drive them out, that's when the chaos is driven away. And there are so many of these texts that have this type of concept in it. So, you know, when he's saying this, like, I wanted to know, you know, what text are you referring to? Because even his concept of Asar as, you know, uniting people peacefully and so forth and so on, if you look at some of the epithets of Asar, is one who is mighty of arm, who smites his enemies and so forth and so on. So it's like, all right, where is the text? Like, anytime this is what we're talking about, primary source research, anytime we're talking about African people say this or African people say that, I just want to know where. What's the proverb here? In this case, what's the text I want to read where it said that? Because in my understanding, the Isfet would be, let's have a collective and let's let Eurasians into it. You understand? As opposed to, all right, here's a collective. And then the other question was, if you have a Shemsu, when Aikwama and Chinwezu were having a conversation, Aikwama was appealing to Chinwezu to learn Medunecha. And Chinwezu was like, it has to be a division of labor. Not everybody in the world has to learn Medunecha. If you're an expert, you tell me the information, I'll take it and run with it, and I'm doing other stuff with it. So like, you can be the specialist on this, I'll be a generalist. And that ended up being the whole conversation for like 2 hours. Like, going back and forth of, does everyone need to learn Medunecha or not? And he was like, you know, we're not your research assistants, you know, learn it yourself, you know. And then he went through his chronology where he was like, if you don't know this, this is your base of knowledge. And before this is all this knowledge. So you're cutting yourself off from the majority of human history. It's like saying something started in Greece and then say, oh, we know there were other sources, but you don't know any of them, right? So that was his point. And the irony of it was that in it, it made it seem like the work of this Shimsu was hierarchically better than the work of this individual or whatever, whoever he's working with, because y'all are just doing general stuff. You're not learning the nTr. Us, we're learning. So my question was, how can you prevent a hierarchy of Shimsus where it just becomes like pre-colonial fragments? I'm a Santi, you're Ewe, y'all are God. These folks deal with blacksmith, and these folks deal with, carpentry, those folks. Then you have a ranking. There's this text, a satire of the trades. I don't know if y'all come up with this, but it's basically saying that the scribe profession is the best profession. And they call it satire because it's so disparaging of every other possible thing that you could do. It's almost like jokes, like, oh, if you do this, if you're a fisherman, then you'll always be smelling like fish, and your hands will be wrinkled and blah blah blah. If you're a potter, then you'll look like you're always dirty all the time, even whenever you gotta eat with your dirty hands. And it like goes through everything. Like, all these things are whack. The only thing where you're your own boss and run stuff is as a scribe. And I'm like, what will prevent this internally egalitarian Shimsu from becoming part of a larger hierarchy where our Shimsu is the best Shimsu? Y'all ain't doing this stuff. So y'all are just the money folks. Y'all folks are doing translations, but we're doing the real job. Yeah? You understand?
I think that we've got to place value on us. I think, this also goes to the conversation about women's roles and all of that. And people say that women's roles are not, they are the least and the men's roles. And then others will be like, oh, then we've got to place value on it, and then uplift it to the same status. I feel like the same conversation, like how do we prevent all of that? How do we make one? Well, we can just see them as complementary. I mean, he wants to be the general. Yeah, you produce it, and then I'm complimenting.
I'm running this. I'm running. And that was Ike almost.
He don't want to like work, but he wants to receive credit for work done by somebody.
No, it's not that. He's saying that I'm not going to learn better than next. He's like, I'm 73 years old.
Okay.
And Ike almost like, well, I'm 77. So what? Like, come on, young buck. Get to it.
Let's get down the hill. Yeah, I saw the, what was the name of the madam?
Dr. Z.
Dr. Z. I was like, it should be used, we should be studying this. Because, I don't know, she's not going to use it much before she goes away with it. So like, how come like, we don't have youth over here? Like, we should be diving into this now. Because they can't run very long
next
stuff.
semester, we're going to start advertising the study group, but I wanted to have a core group of who is serious, and then you all would help out those who are, whatever. So y'all will be the guides and escorts. But look at this. This is another text. This is the prophecies of Nefertiti. And again, what I'm going to go through is word for word and then show it. But this is all the Mennonitian transliteration. Then the transliteration is here. A strange bird will breed in the Delta marshes, talking about the Asiatics. And then referred to as a strange bird, having made its nest beside the people, that's us. The people having let it approach by default. This is what we were talking about yesterday with the Hyksos, running stuff from where you allowed them to come in. Now it's jacked up. All happiness has vanished. The land is bowed down in distress, owing to those feeders, Asiatics who roam the land. Foes has risen in the east. Asiatics have come down into Egypt or Kemet. Again, this is the cycle of hymns to King Sesostris III. His Majesty's tongue restrains Nubia, his utterance make Asiatics flee. It was coming to the point that the conflicts with Nubia were to bring in more black people, to bring in more land of black people, to expand the land of black people, but it's talking about the Asiatics, y'all gotta go. We're trying to keep the black people together, but y'all gotta go. Here in Sanhat, it says, I made the road walking north. I reached the walls of the Pharaoh, built to keep out Asians and to crush sand-faring Bedouins. Right? All of these are to the same idea. Now, if we think everything started in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We're lost to all of this information. This one is, where are we? He has extended the state frontiers. He will take possession of the southern lands without thinking about the lands to the north. He was born to smash the Asians and trample upon the sand-faring Bedouins. And again, this is the same idea when we're talking about other black people. He will take possession of the southern lands. I was talking about Nubia, without thinking about the lands to the north. And up to Jehudi Mes, we didn't have anything to do with trying to get into southwestern Asia. It was like, that's irrelevant. We are land of the blacks. We're trying to extend more land of the blacks. And the idea is that if it wasn't for these Eurasians coming in their incursion, eventually they would have succeeded all the way down to South Africa, all the way to West Africa. That's the idea. We're always trying to incorporate more black people, but then you have pushback because you have black people who don't see themselves as black people. I'm Urjet, you're Wawa, you're Sajer, y'all. But Kemet means we're all black people, right? And that's how it was initially until it congealed into we're Kemet and everybody else is somebody else, right? So your very name, just like how African names are, your very name is your constitution. It tells you what your destiny is supposed to be. And that's how it was initially. But then after the one, and this is in your folder, one, you had the first intermediate period, and this is the text on Hesi that my middle lecture teacher wrote, where he talks about, you have this first use of the term Hesi, which is wretched, they translate it as wretched or defeated, and it was people of Kemet referring to other people as that. I'm trying to rule, you're trying to rule, y'all are Hesi folks, y'all are wretched folks, and then y'all are saying the same thing back and forth. In the way to finally, when you have the coming of Mentuhotep I, the rise of trying to defeat all of that, internal conflict was to say, look, we're all one. Our enemies aren't internal anymore. Our enemies are everybody who's not part of Kemet. So you went from the policy of we're always trying to bring in more black folk, and even after that, we were still doing that, but now it's congealed into a more, it's like saying in the US, we went from black to now African American. So when we're all black, it's like, yo, we got black folks all over, we're all black. To now it's congealed into like, we're a fragment. And that's exactly what you had. You had folks who were enslaved there who were taken from Mende folks, from Wolof speaking folks, from Akan speaking folks, from Yoruba folks, from Igbo folks, from folks out of Angola, from everywhere. So it makes sense that we're all black, but we've gone from this massive type of identity to look, we're just one fragment out of a whole bunch of other fragments. African American, Brazilians, Ghanaians, whatever. So you had such an opportunity to return to this Kemet broad mindset, but it's gone into just African American. Same thing here, you went from this Kemet is black people, land of the black people, but it's gone from that wide concept to Kemet is our nation, and we're against the 9 bows. These 3 bows, like bow and arrow, these 3 bows here, these 3 bows here, all of those are our enemies. We gotta, but it came about because of that first intermediate period conflicts about who's gonna, succeed this one to the throne and other stuff. But again, any claims that we make, we should look at the source text. And this is, but this should be said to the bowman, lo, the miserable Asiatic, he is wretched because of the place he's in, short of water, bare of wood. His paths are many and painful because of mountains. He does not dwell in one place, food propels his legs. Same thing, occupied by one, goes around the desert on his feet. He fights since the time of Horus, not conquering nor being conquered. He does not announce a day of combat like a thief who darts about in a group. And then this one, when the bowmen were a sealed wall, I breached their strongholds, and I made Lower Egypt attack them. I captured their inhabitants. I seized their cattle until the Asiatics abhorred Egypt. Do not concern yourself with him. The Asiatic is a crocodile on its shore, but that's the problem if you just think, let's not concern ourselves. A crocodile on its shore, and snatches from a lonely road it cannot seize from a populous town. And that was the case for thousands of years until, here come the Hyksos. They were on the shore in the delta until He said, yo, we kicking in the door, waving the 4-4. All he says, Hyksos don't hit us no more. Then you came up with the Persians, right, led by Cambyses. So, again, any claims that are made, it should be based on the original one.
This book is going to spark a lot of
Yeah, because it's all, I'm just giving you the sense. And I'm giving you word for word translations. This ain't interpretation, it's like, read it. Just read it.
This book would
Because a lot of people have built their entire careers
Yeah.
on not knowing anything before the 1400s. I'm thinking that all African history is just fog and mist before that. Maybe we have fractals and other stuff, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, no, read what we wrote. We wrote it down so you would know that this is a pattern. This ain't some new stuff, right? Lamentations of equal wear. In their midst, like Asiatics, none are found who would stand up to protect them. Every man fights for his sisters and protects himself. Is it Nubians, then we will protect ourselves. There are plenty of fighters to repel the bowmen. Is it Libyans? We will turn them back. The Magi are content with Egypt. How then does every man kill his brother? The troops we raise for ourselves have become bowmen bent on destroying. What has come from it is to let the Asiatics know the state of the land. This is deep, man. Yet every foreigner fears it. The experience of the people is that they say Egypt will not be given over to sand. That's saying these desert dwellers. Who replies to a matter as befits it. To stop when attacked is to make bold the foe's heart. Attack is valor, retreat is cowardice. A coward is he who is driven from his border. Since a Nubian listens to the word of mouth, to answer him is to make him retreat. Attack him, he will turn back. Retreat, he will start attacking. They are not people one respects, they are wretches, craven-hearted. My majesty has seen it, is it not untrue? I have captured their women, I have carried off their dependents, gone to their wells, killed their cattle, cut down their grain, set fire to it. As my father lives for me, I speak the truth. It is no boast that comes from my mouth. So we're seeing a change from at the top of Winnie, is we're bringing together all the black folks to now, yo, we fighting. It's us against y'all. So, you know, the thing is to show the chronology of this. How did the ideas change over time, right? You can look at U.S. foreign policy, it changes day to day. All right, Russia's doing this against Ukraine, all right, boom. Or you can look at this for centuries, this is what it is. Finally, something happens, this intermediate period, you see a shift, right? And the intermediate period, the internal struggles were the cause of the first shift. Then the Hyksos came in and invaded. That's the second shift. So we're looking at these are the two major fulcra that made a shift. We're doing this, and then here's the shift. We have to do something different. We're going here, and now the Hyksos invaded, boom. Now we're going into Southwestern Asia when we were always saying, ignore them, don't worry about them. There are crocodiles on the shore, they can't do anything. But now they came in and ran stuff. So now you had, Amos was able to drive them out. Then generation or two later, you have Djibouti who takes the war to them. But in doing so, he started to intermarry, started to allow them to come in. This is where genetics says this was where you had that reverse migration. It says that's traceable to 3,000 years ago. That's when Djibouti messed open the floodgates.
He says, I made a Asiatics do the dog walk.
Do the dog walk.
I'm wondering what the dog was.
It's a dance. No. There are a couple of scholars who have ideas about what this is. Is it making them crawl on all fours on the ground? But whatever it is, it's saying that you humiliated them utterly and thoroughly.
This slide said, Denchen fee. It's an opportunity for you to catch also Denchen away. Like I have captured their women, I have carried them off, and he's telling you that don't have anything to do with them, you know. Right. We still keep going back.
There's a quote, I just saw it online somewhere, like on a meme or something. It said, if history teaches us anything, it's that people don't learn from history.
Think about it, yeah.
The lesson from history is that people don't learn from history. I had assigned everything to its place. I subdued lions, I captured crocodiles, I repressed those of Wawa, I captured the Magi, all those are black people. I made the Asiatics do the dog walk. is an inferior beloved when he becomes a superior. No Asiatic makes friends with a Delta man. The courtier goes into the desert, leaving his goods to his children. Fearful of lions and Asiatics, he knows himself only when he's in Egypt. But again, anything that we say, it should always be backed up with this is the text that we're referring to. And I still got, so here are the, just trying to, again, word for word, show the meta nexture, show the transliteration.
How long?
Yeah. This is the Merim Patah Stela. It's the first time Israel was mentioned anywhere in the course of the entire history of Kemet, and this is after Ramesses II Merim Patah. So it says, the princes are prostrate, saying Shalom. Not one of the 9 bows lifts its head. Chenu is vanquished. Kati at peace. Canaan is captive with all woe. Ashkelon is conquered. Gezer-Si is Yanom, they non-existent. Israel, that's the first time anywhere in history this comes up, is wasted bare of seed. Kor has become a widow for Egypt. So this is between 2,500 to 3,000 years ago. Very recent. Kor has become a widow for Egypt. All who roamed have been subdued by the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Banin Re Meramon, son of Re Merim Patah, content with Ma'at, given life like Re every day.
So when is it coming out? When is the book?
You know, I want to get a chance. I have one last article of my own that I'm working with a colleague in WSTNW so on, and we'll get that out. I want to spend the whole December and January working only on this. But then I have 4 articles I have to prepare for editing for Ghana Journal of Linguistics. Prabhupada Kubu was a former editor, and she didn't get anything out before, you know, she got sick and passed on. And ideally, we were supposed to have 2 journals come out, but I didn't even get my assignment to be editor-in-chief until like March, April. So we're just getting these in, and before the end of the year, we have to release that. So perhaps December will be taken up by getting those ready for publication. Like definitely January should be mine. And I was even thinking about maybe popping up in Senegal just to get some time and to relax. Like, yo, I'm here for the writers workshop. Yeah, yo, I got a book coming down. It's gonna be a biggie.
Yeah, this book would be.
It's basically like Destruction of Black Civilization, but with more references.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of the cases were made in that book. Where it's like, yeah, when you in Kemet, when they allowed whites to come in, that was the beginning of destruction. It's like, well, what's the text? let me read. But this is all the text that he was definitely looking at in order to come to those.
In terms of like African,
people are basing their arguments on a text. Should that be the case?
Mm-hmm.
That is what like Christians do. Because when I say something and I don't have a text, they go and pick the Bible like, okay, it's right here in this book, so they have a point.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a difference because the Bible is 50% lies, 50% plagiarism. The Bible is 50% lies, 50% plagiarism. So it depends on what text are you talking about. Are you talking about a fairy tale book like the Bible? Or are you talking about historical documents carved in stone? So the 50% lies, we can throw those out. The 50% plagiarism, you have to go to where was the source. Where did they steal those texts from? You understand?
Yeah.
So if you look at Psalm 104, then you look at the Hemta Akhenaten, you can see these parallels. You see this, you see that. You know, so that's what your job is to do. So anything that people who read the Bible do, you have to already just put that to one side. That's non-slop. We have to come to original text that our ancestors wrote so that we would have access to this information. Right? If I carve something in a boulder, a 2-ton boulder that I dragged for 200 miles here, and then I carved this, 6 inches or a foot deep into the stone, you would think that I think it's pretty important for you, my descendant, to read what I'm writing down. Right? So what we're doing is we're unlocking that information so you can read what your ancestors wanted you to know. Because if you don't know this, then you think that the problems with Europeans started in the 1700s or in the 1800s. Oh, they started doing, I'm like, no, they've been trying to do self-preservation since 4,000 years old, 5,000 years ago, and we have the documents that show what they were trying to do. You can read the propaganda that they did. Then you can look internally. In the beginning at Harkuf, when they did Harkuf's expedition, they were talking about going to Nubia to get acacia wood to make their boats. If you come to the end of the civilization, they're talking about going to Lebanon to get cedar wood to make their boats. So what happens when you're dependent on internally on African people versus when you abandon that and now you go and be dependent on these Lebanese who are the same folks in Osu, you know, for your wood. You know, again, one who listens to his belly belongs to the enemy. Right? So we have to know this information. Otherwise,
sacrifice for what?
If we don't have the information, then everything that we're saying is just.
And that's the most frustrating thing. That information
look,
is there.
Like how do we get this publication? After the publication is out, it's gonna like academia and big people at the top that will have access to it. How do like and then
Oh, I get it.
You'll be like, I'll be the first one. I'm like, yo, Doc, I'm not getting no. I'm out here all
so it's still going to be on the top level, on the topical level, right? So the basic
I'm
people
definitely
doesn't know what
publishing
is.
with a black publisher, and I'm thinking about definitely here in Africa, whether or not that's Ghana, maybe per aunt, but the thing is per aunt stuff isn't here. And then distributor is this Chinese woman out of California, so that's, you know, the contradiction there.
That is our.
My father recommended, it's a black-owned publisher out of, I want to say Baltimore, Black Classic Press. He says that they are the best, most fair, you know, folks. They'll get you your money. A lot of the other ones, we won't say. But he says he knows, you know, we had a bookstore for some 14 years. So he said, this is a brother who has the best reputation, whatever. So I'm considering possibly there or somewhere here. I want to get more input from colleagues. But the conversation with Chingwezu, Igwelma Chingwezu, and then him and Papampanda is you better publish with your own folks. One, if you go to these big white publishers thinking they're going to do you good, they will do just what they do with the mines, with your natural resources. They will rape you, chew you up, spit you out, and you'll have your name and reputation. Oh, this is, but you'll have no money. They will have stuck into you. You have no recourse because they got multi-billion-dollar lawyers, and you sitting here with your University of Ghana salary. Which is less than what a worker at McDonald's gets.
And Doc, like, do you consider like having a publishing like company, very like next future, like very soon? Was this guy, Alvin Bodkun that I was telling you about? Like, he was who is the King of Glory, and I was like demystifying, and then the Bible, and then relating everything back to like Egypt and what happened in Egypt, and his boss was the massive guy. So like he wasn't able to like get this thing published. So what he did was like he got angry and then he went into publication and then published his own book.
Yeah.
How about like you and your friends?
Yeah, that's an option. That's an option. I want to get more information on how that's done because obviously I haven't done that before.
No.
But it's an option because that's what Ike Brahma did. He set up his own, you know, publishing house. And if, you know, the quality is good, then that can be all it is.
Who's that?
This is from the autobiography of Winnie. I've shared this with you all before. So, let's come back. I think it's going to yeah. So this is the original text in stone. Come down. So when His Majesty took action against the Asiatic sand dwellers, His Majesty made an army of many tens of thousands from all of Upper Egypt, from Yebu in the south to Medinit in the north. These are all black folks. From Lower Egypt, from all the two sides of the house, and from Sejer and Ken Sejru, and from Irjet Nubians, Maja Nubians, Yam Nubians, Wawat Nubians, Kao Nubians, and then from Chimay land. Then we come down here. This army returned in safety. It had ravaged the sand dwellers' land. That's these same folks on the desert, these Arabs. This army returned in safety and had flattened the sand dwellers' land. This army returned in safety and had sacked its strongholds. This army returned in safety and had cut down its figs and its vines. This army returned in safety and had thrown fire in all its mansions. This army returned in safety and had slain its troops by many 10,000s. This army returned in safety and had carried off many troops as captives. His Majesty praised me before it beyond anything. His Majesty sent me to lead this army 5 times to attack the land of the sand dwellers as often as they rebelled. With these troops, I acted so that His Majesty praised me for it beyond anything. And again, told there were marauders among these foreigners. At the nose of Gazelle's head, I crossed in ships with these troops. I made a landing and back of the height of the mountain range. This is military strategy. So they think you're coming from here. You landed your ships behind them. So they're waiting like, okay, when did they come in? Bam! So I made a landing in the back of the height of the mountain range to the north of the land of the sand dwellers, while half of this army was on the road. So this is what they call a pincer movement, right? So you're catching them in between here, and then you get them from both sides. So this is something that started in Greece or Rome apparently, except it was written down before Greece or Rome even existed.
Yeah, and that also means that you've got to have an idea of the land. You've got to know, you have a map. So we've already been exploring. We know
The oldest map in the history of the world, we already covered that one, right?
Yeah.
South up too.
Yeah.
So while half of this army was on the road, I came and caught them. I came and caught them all and slew every marauder among them. So that's the original foreign policy. So the majesty of the majesty of my Lord sent me to subdue those foreign lands, and I did it in such a way that my Lord was immensely pleased with me. I brought to the residents the 2 subdued chiefs of these foreign lands, along with gifts of live oxen and goats chosen for the benefit of the residents, as well as their children and the commanders of the Nubian forces with which were with them. I outdid that which had been done by the great ones of the south, Upper Egypt, because I paid close attention to carrying out the wishes of my Lord. The majesty of my Lord sent me to the land of the Amu to bring back the body of the sole companion, controller of Nekhen, Copper's son of the overseers of Ankti. He had been building a reed boat there to travel to Punt when the Amu and sand dwellers killed him in the armed division of the expedition which accompanied him. And then the missing text. Those Amu, using the military wing of the expedition which was sent with me, I drove the murderers among them away. Then the autobiography of Harkuf. Then His Majesty sent me a 3rd time to Yam. I went up from the nome of this upon the Oasis Road. I found the ruler of Yam. This is the first diplomacy. So one of my students, Nanayak, he's at Lesia, and he was sitting through a class where he said, yes, diplomacy started in Greece. And I said, this is educational malpractice. He should be sued as though he was doing surgery and left a scalpel in the belly. So listen to this. This is diplomacy, as opposed to, I'm just going to listen to this. Then His Majesty sent me a 3rd time to Yam. And this is, the context is Winnie had just brought together all those different types of black people to fight against the Asiatic sand dwellers. Within one generation, so the successor to Winnie is Harkuf. Within one generation, some of those Africans were fighting amongst each other. So this is the background. Then His Majesty sent me a 3rd time to Yam. I went up from the nome of this upon the Oasis Road. I found that the ruler of Yam had gone up to Chimay land to smite the Chimay to the western nome of heaven. I went up after him to Chimay land and satisfied him, so that he praised all of the gods of the sovereign. I dispatched the courtier X with the men from Yam to the retinue of Horus to let the majesty of Merimre, my lord, know that I had gone to Chimay land after the ruler of Yam. Now when I had satisfied this ruler of Yam south of Erjet and north of Sedru, I found the ruler of the confederacy of Erjet, Sedju, and Wawat. I came down with 300 donkeys laden with incense, ebony, leskinu, oil, panther skins, elephant tusks, throw sticks, and all sorts of good products. Now when the ruler of Erjet, Sedju, and Wawat saw how strong and numerous the troop from Yam was, which came down with me to the residence together with the army that had been sent with me, this ruler escorted me, gave me cattle and goats, and led me to the mountain pass of Erjet because of the excellence of the vigilance I had employed beyond that of any companion in chief of scouts who had been sent to Yam before. So the importance of the pacification, I'm going there to smite them to the western realm of heaven. That means I'm going to kick their butt so hard, their mama going to feel it. But he came down and pacified it. He squashed it like, yo, all of us, we're all black people.
We shouldn't be doing this.
You shouldn't be doing this, man. Come on, relax, chill out, right? So this is diplomacy before there's anything called Rome in existence. And we have the original source text that our ancestors wanted us to be able to read, because otherwise we're dependent on our Eurasian enemies to tell us about stuff, right? So all of these are the reasons why we need to learn this. And part of it is that we have to get beyond just saying, oh, we had writing. Yes, that means we're real human beings. White people, you hearing us? We're real human beings, right? It's like, no, it's not enough to know we have writing. What did we write down? Why did we say it? Why did we say this is important to preserve? So that you, who are seated in front of me, can read it and take life actions that are consistent with self-preservation, as opposed to taking Eurasian ideologies, whether it's Marxism, capitalism, whatever else, ism that they got, Christianity, Islam, or whatever. All those were created to preserve Eurasians. And when you accept them, everything you will say will be to preserve Eurasians. That's why you were given it. Because there's no part of your ideology that tells you you need to get justice. Right? So yeah.
This is some revolutionary stuff right here. Yeah.
It's just reading. It's just reading your stuff.
Yeah.
It's like.
And then it's like the time has come that people are just awoken to the fact that this information is there.
Yeah.
And it was not there for us to come and read it and know about it and utilize it.
Yeah. One of my colleagues here, whose name I won't mention, was like, no, all of this idea of race or whatever, it started in the 1800s.
He thinks 1800.
Yeah, that sounds like academia.
With my low knowledge, I know that it's way beyond that. So if your colleagues are saying this,
started just, when they brought Tamu to.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Anyone who says that is either they have been duped or they're trying to dupe you. Yeah, they don't know or they do know, and they're saying intentionally jack you up, right? So this is why we have to break the chain that links African ideas to European ones, and listen to the voice of the ancestors without European interpreters. Either those who are actually European or those who are European.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because now some people are, they look like their ancestors.
if this should go to a white publisher, it will never come out.
To come out, but then they would, those who must read will not get access to it. So, for example, those of us in African studies.
If this would go to a white publishing house, it means that my brain does not work. It means we need to send Dr. Kamba to asylum down to Pantan somewhere because his brain obviously is no longer functional. And I will just write a note ahead of time that says, if this goes to a white publishing house, commit me as insane, don't let me out, because I'm likely a threat to myself and society.
That's true.
But yeah, I would like to get something done on this. So this is the thing, getting beyond saying or making our objective to convince Europeans that we're human beings. or to convince us or them that we've actually done something, right? That if you are in a conversation with Europeans, is what we're talking about before, you're wasting your time. Because there's this quote by, I want to say, Toni Morrison, to always be replying and answering questions that you thought were obvious keeps you from doing your work. That's a paraphrase. So that's the whole point, is to keep you from doing your work. They say, you don't have history? Yes, we do. Now, as opposed to actually doing something, your whole time is trying to have a conversation with, they already know you have history because it's all in the London Museum in the basement. So the whole point is just to keep you engaged in a fruitless activity, to convince. It's like you're not sitting in front of me. Now imagine if you spend the next 10 hours convincing me that you are. I know that you are, I'm very clear that you are, but I'm wasting your time. So yeah, it's time to get beyond some of those very base level arguments. We're saying once we know that we're all black, now, then what? Right? What are the lessons that our black ancestors were saying? Yep. So let's come back here to what we were working on. So we did Djibouti mess the first, what the Eurasians refer to as tetanus thirst. Now we need Keperin Ray. Keperin Ray.
What did I want to? What did I want to?
No, they just
No, we did Kepakare. Now we need Keperin Ray.
Oh, okay.
That's Djibouti mess the second.
Yeah.
I was about to say that was quick.
Oh.
Like I'm done. I did it behind my back, left-handed. No, you're left-handed, right?
No, right-handed.
Okay. So I say, yeah, of course I did, because I'm left-handed. Hold on one second. I'm coming back. So this is it. Kepler, yeah, right? Oh, you did that one?
Yeah.
Now Djibouti mess.
grades, then Kepler becoming
Yeah, great.
which will be
Hmm?
of
Yeah.
the sun. So grades becoming
Mhm.
grades becoming of the sun.
Mhm.
Grades becoming grades of the sun.
Peak.
To me, Kepler becoming in a way. Just say obey it.
It's me bahasa Nsakrai. Anak saya Nsakrai. Anak saya Adane, maksudnya misalnya Nsakrai na bahasa Cina.
To me be a To me, via yeah, and I say a bear to say Oria.
Me and me can say Oya in Sakraya Cassia, and I say Oya in Sakraya Pong. There's a pong, and to have Bibia, a soon, Bibia, a Cassia, Bibia, what do you want? Or Grandpong, on Yonko Pong, Mam Pong, Afro Pong, just a Cassia, and Oya and Sakraya Pong. And I said Oya and Sakraya Cassia. Money up.
The great change of the sun. The great becoming of the sun.
Good. Now we need Mahat Kare hot chef suits. Naya, war Australian since I mean.
Sir.
Australian since I mean. Surfline.
Pacha is alright.
But I'm in find it my question to money. Australian is surf or wave. Australian. In Saint-Salien is a lot.
That's what Jesus.
No English whatsoever in the cheese.
Minimity and Mission China and it's a pet of Casa.
Yeah.
No, your botaya and Mission China. And the yard and yard and Casa. The free book of Casa and some combo of Casa. And also,
Even some local people would say surf line. No?
that's what they would say. You would never find anyone who said what I would say. But that's the difference.
And I don't know, a friend of mine was like, well, yeah, we say that because it means that we do not have that in our
That's what I was
society.
thinking.
And
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
wasn't
yo,
there when the language
it's
was
arts
created.
language, right?
As though the British had that in their society. As that Shakespeare was sitting with 4G internet, right? At one point in time, it would be ridiculous to think that English could ever be used as a language of learning. It would have been the most ridiculous thing. People would laugh you out of the place if you think English.
Latin was there.
Latin was there. So English was something. So here, beef is the meat that's on the table because that's what the learned people would say. But then this is cow because that's what the indigenous British people would say. So you would have, a difference between what you say for this, mutton, sheep, right? Because this is the language of the esteemed elite. This is a language of cowherds. So you say, oh, I'm at Oxford. This is a place where oxen cross the river. You understand?
Yeah.
So all of you cowherders have a prestigious institution somewhere where the cows cross the river. Thank you for that.
Wow.
But this is the thing, once you understand history, then people can't run game on you.
Yeah.
It's like you are cowherders, we know you. Oxford. Sheep pen. Chicken coop. I'm going to the prestigious institution of chicken coop.
Last year when Fufu showed me the Moors, because I didn't know about the Moors, like I felt like I've been lied to.
You have.
Like my whole life.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed.
That's how you
I was
should
like,
feel.
Oh my God, like what's going on in this world? Like nothing is what it seems like. All of our information has been hidden from us.
Welcome to reality.
Yeah, because I was in that typical black person consciousness, thinking we're the bottom feeders, and we kind of just accept ourselves
That's not
in
black.
that place.
That's anti-black consciousness. That's not black person consciousness. That's anti-black consciousness that's been implanted into you to make you anti-black.
That's crazy.
That is very. That's a very good description of it. That's crazy.
I was mindful. I was
Like
like,
people did something useful. And that's the thing, it's like we can get stuck on that rung of the ladder forever. Like
Yeah.
we really did something. Then we're trying to
running
convince
around
white
the
folks
streets,
like,
yeah.
look, we did something.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna say we know. Didn't you spend the next 60 years of your life trying to tell a white person something that they already know?
Because they think we're amazing. That's something that's within their collective consciousness, is that they know black people are great.
Which is why they have to do all this stuff, because they know they're gonna get their butts whooped.
When they're around us, they think we're cool just by the virtue of us being ourselves, you know. So it's like they know this.
Yeah, that's what Francis Cress Welsing dealt with in terms of the Cress theory of color confrontation, that everything about them, all their behavior comes to them having a concern or a fear of white genetic annihilation.
So it's all about survival, like
Yeah.
I
But,
will
I mean,
survive.
That's
I
what
will
it is about
survive.
every species on the face of the planet, and that's what it's always been about. So to act like, oh, Christianity is a game changer, no.
No.
It's just another tool to survive. So if you put a lion and a leopard together and their cubs together, they're going to be like, yo, there's so much resources, we want to survive. And then these ones say, we want to survive. How are we going to work that out? Right? Every creature on the planet understands this. This is why you see a woman and you think she's beautiful. This is why a woman sees a man and says he's handsome. All of it comes down to how am I going to survive and, procreate, have multiple generations. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you all before, actually, a couple things. Let me see if I can show you the original image.
Doc, you work on herbal medicine and herbal natural food stuff.
Yeah.
I saw some cream the other day, last Friday. Is it cream like hair? Something like
It's for the skin.
for the skin,
I
right?
think it's soap, actually.
My girl selling it.
Dr. Z.
Really, you have some.
Do I have some?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you
But I
have.
also.
How much? How much is it?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't personally bought
Right.
it.
Is it only for ladies or I don't know? Everybody can. So you. Okay, you are contact with
This is what we were talking about on our BB2 we talked about a week or two ago.
commit.
But I myself, let me show you my product.
Why African Bruno?
I'll be selling these. This is moringa powder.
Moringa.
Yeah.
What for?
What for? For the optimal health. Like, I take it in the morning for like different reasons, to grow my nails, my hair. I've lost weight taking it. Lost a lot of weight. Yeah, but it's set to prevent and cure like 300 types of ailments. Like, so it's something that's good for you, you know.
So where do you get your picture? Because I know live in
Cape
Accra.
Coast.
You don't live in Accra.
I live in Accra.
But you get your material from like Cape Coast. How much?
I haven't priced it yet.
Like
I
something
haven't started selling it yet. It's just a sample that I took to the board. Just today I went to the standard board, yeah. So
and they said, what? Are you still just
go
today?
through paperwork and all of that stuff. So, yeah. We were talking about herbs and plants, and that's what I'm into. Yeah.
Because I don't even see any reason why you should go and say this one. I don't even see any reason why you go and say this one. This is gonna stand out. That's what you think.
Oh, I mean, all they have to do is just approve it. That doesn't matter for them to understand why I'm gonna sell it.
And like, you want to promote health, should you come and seek permission from them before you promote health?
Yeah, because I want to export it.
Okay,
So
so you
I have
want
to.
to big up later on. Okay.
So I have to.
Okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned herbs and
Yeah,
stuff
and so
like that.
sometimes it's like,
That's what I'm into.
so you do other things apart from this.
Well, not yet. Like
Why
I'm just
you-
doing the research, but I do intend on selling
Some-
other herbs. Yeah.
Well, like
Yeah,
I'm also
my
thinking
village.
of that. So like this herbal medicine and like forget about the orthodox kind of medicine and do our stuff like.
Yeah.
But I'm just not getting time.
Mm.
But I've done a whole lot of research and like
Well,
they
I'll
have.
send you a couple of books that I have on PDF.
Okay.
So, as we close out, I want to show you the
Simplest image.
Enter your email.
No.
So chef suit is the
Leave
lady,
it off of my
hat
list.
is in the front, so foremost are ladies.
Really? In school you don't use email?
Here. Don't use them for anything. What do you use them for?
Sure.
We don't use them here. Here is Africa for you, and Ghana for you.
For those who have been here before I showed you all this one, so why you should learn nature before going to Kemet? There's an Arab who's going to teach me something, right?
He's gonna just mess you up.
Exactly. The name of her stepson.
Okay.
Just put
Check it.
No, I'm doing video.
I'm going to video.
So let me show you this. Did I show you this already? Send them.
Yeah, you showed us.
I didn't say it, sir.
He's saying you see the name of her stepson everywhere.
The name of
The name of her stepson.
Not just on the sand.
Not just on the sandstone, on the granite stone.
Nib Kibera.
Neb Keparah. That's not what it says. It says Min Keparah. He's saying it's Neb
Picture
Keparah.
of the background will stay.
And then his translation is jacked up. It has nothing to do with it.
The animals never die.
So I correct him.
But when he dies, this becomes fusing during the mummification process used to keep.
So he said Neb
So
Keparah.
this is Min Kepara.
I said, do you say it's
Yes.
Min Keparah?
Oh, yeah.
That's like, yes, that's what I said.
The picture of the background.
You quickly put.
So I only did that one time. And after that, I was like, I'm not here to teach him anything.
Anything.
Let him just blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes. So African champions must break the chain that links African ideas to European ones and listen to the voice of the ancestors without European interpreters. Now this is of course going to be the case when you have European interpreters, but even if it's somebody who's black who's telling you something, you have to know it yourself. This is what I agree, I almost point this to Chimwezu, because if you say, oh, well, you're black, you're an expert, let me just take whatever. But what if this person may not be fully clear on what it is? You have to be the one to catch it. This is another example. This is in the Cairo
To show you
Museum.
the forces that we're up against, the forces that we're fighting. As I said before, many years I've come here, and Amenemhet III that you see right here was in the front, along with all the other Middle Kingdom
So this
pharaohs.
is Amenemhet III.
And I came
It was in the front.
a year ago, and I noticed that he was missing. I didn't know where he was at. And it wasn't until I came back, after searching throughout all the museum, I find him in a back corner. In this back corner with pieces that you see are broken up. He is a major pharaoh of the 12th dynastic period, a time of high literature, a time that it was known as the second golden age of Kemet. This is a brother who took and built the pyramids in Harwala. This is the brother who made the black capstone put on top of this pyramid that you just saw. But why is he in the back corner? But you're going to see Nefret and Rahotep, those
He's
two
in the
figures.
New
Once you
Kingdom
see them,
section.
you'll
There's a
recognize
reason
them
why
because
he's
you see
there.
them in all the books in America. That's who they show you, who were irrelevant, who were not pharaohs, who did not build major sites and so forth, and one even questioned if they had anything to do with this. But we got to question, why is Amenemhet the third all the way in the back room, in the back corner for no one to see him, where he's been systematically moved out of the way. And I'm saying that this brother built his pyramid, like I said, in the area of Harwala. He's known as building
So all this, what he's saying is
which is
about
a very
Amenemhet
elaborate
III.
structure.
How
Many
about his name is right here.
rooms were in this labyrinth.
Now, if you know how to read
So
it,
all
you
the
would know
things that
what
he
the name
did,
is.
but the
But I'm gonna show you
racism
something.
of the Western world, this is where we have Amenemhet III. But you see his nose has been knocked off.
I feel like crying.
This is what we're saying, like I said before, there's no one prototype.
There's
that
another
defines
reason why you
an
should
African
cry,
facial
and I'm gonna come to
characteristic.
it
Look
very
among
soon.
us, we have all types of facial characteristics, nose structure, and even color. This is what made us truly the people who we are, the mothers and fathers of the planet Earth. But systematically, the ones that got wide nose, thick lips, have been systematically trying to erase it from the public's eye. So now we see Amenemhet
So his
III
thesis
is in
is
the back
actually correct what he's
corner.
saying. You
with
know,
other
about,
relics,
you know, they'll
and we
put
have to
the
come
white
back in the back
ones.
corner. When
It's
we
like
get around
I
to
go
the other
to
side, I
take
want
a
to
picture
show
of
you where he
Lebanese and
once
say,
stood
look,
at.
this is the people of Ghana.
So we have to
His
understand
thesis is
that there's
correct.
a serious
However, this is why you
psychological,
need to learn my
intellectual
definition for
war
yourself.
going on. And it's a serious war that's just as vicious as having our children in the classroom where the psychological war
So if
takes
you could
place,
just
especially
read
when that
what you
educational
did, just,
institution is controlled by someone who does, or other people who doesn't have the best interests of our children nor our people at heart. Hey, come on over here, Joseph. Let's say, yeah, we've been doing this. Let Joseph come over here for a minute. Here's Amenemhet III living right here today. Brother Ken Joseph. Look at Ken Joseph here and look at Amenemhet III. Well, you hold your head up high, brother. Now, look
Which
it up.
white one is that? What white? You have white pyramid
Now you get your shots in
immediately.
right now. Brother gonna charge you for that shot too. Now you can see the gene is still passing on. But we got to take Joseph down to Harwala one day and see that pyramid as well. The first thing that
These
you'll
are the
see,
ones that they put
many
in
of you
front.
have seen Rahotep and Nefret. Rahotep was not a king. Nefret was not a queen. They did not hold the throne in ancient times.
And you can do the
But it
same
seems
thing
as though
in
they're in
Ghana right
all
now.
of the books.
And say
And
Ghana
Egypt
is
is the
all
opening of the
Lebanese.
page.
Yeah.
It's
But
a
keep in
colony of
mind, the
Lebanon.
African people are many, many colors. I've
We'll
traveled
come back.
throughout the African continent. There are many,
Because
many shades of color
the point
of
of
African
it
people. But the point that I
is
want to
that
specifically...
That is not Amenemhet III. It's Merenptah. And all you have to do is know how to read it in order to see who it is. So let me show you. That's why I'm deciding to show you the original. And I'll blow it up so you can see it much better on the original one.
Just passed.
Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna blow it up so you can see it. And the point is that this is why you have to learn meta-nature yourself, because even those who mean well, if they don't know how to read it, they may be sending you off. So, in it, at 220, it says this is Amenemhat III from the Middle Kingdom, but Merenptah's names are clearly written on the Shanu on his chest and right shoulder. On the shoulder is Merenptah's throne name. On the shoulder is Merenptah's throne name. Ba and Ra, Mary Amen. On the chest is Merenptah's birth name, Merenptah Hetep Ma'at. Now compare what you would see there with the names of Amenemhat III. So this is Amenemhat Ni Ma'at Ra, that's what we covered last week. Wa'ank, Iti Iwat Tawi, and A'abau. So now let's zoom in. This is Mer, right? So this is to be beloved of. Mer, N, you recognize the N. This is Patah. Hotep, that's peace. Her, this is on. And then this is, it should be Ma'at. Let's come back here. So what you see there, this is Mary, that's the same beloved. N of Patah, the deity, the creator deity. Hotep, this is peace. Her, this is on. And then Ma'at, right? So that's Merenptah's birth name. Let's come here to the throne name on the shoulder and see if it matches up. And again, the point is you should learn meta-nature for yourself. So this is, let's come back. So you see it side by side. So this is Ba, N, Ra, Mary. This is beloved of Imun. So now I'll show you on the picture. So this is the Ba. This is the N. This is the Ra. This is Mary. This is Amun. So very clearly, this is Merenptah from the New Kingdom, right? So the thesis that he's saying is correct, that they want to put the white images out front. They want to, degrade the ruler. It would be like, I'm going to take a Lebanese from Osu and not show you Atam Mills. I'm not going to show you Kufuor. We're not going to show you Osei. We're not going to show you anybody. We're just going to take a random Lebanese who's here. So look, this was he owned Frankie's or something, right? That's like, no, why aren't you going to show me the people, the rulers, and all of the people? You're going to show me selectively. So this is the point. The thesis is correct. But if you don't know how to read meta-nature,
you go there and
so now imagine somebody who's on his tour who finds out this information, he'll be heartbroken like, man,
why?
You didn't tell me the right thing. And it was only as a result of not knowing how to read meta-nature. So I said in the comment below that this would be like going to the Lincoln Memorial and start talking about Thomas Jefferson. Now everything you say about Thomas Jefferson, he owned enslaved Africans, he raped this woman, Sally Hemings, he did. But it says very clearly this is Lincoln Memorial. It's written here. So this is why you have to learn, meta-nature. So, again, it lets you know that, this person who means well is, one, not literate, at least at that time. But then also nobody in the whole group is literate, right? So then you have in the proverb, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed is king. Right?
Yeah.
So the point is, and the point isn't even, making mistakes. It's that, all right, I may make a mistake, you may make a mistake, but look at how much stronger we are if we all have a background and all are able to read something.
Yeah,
right?
Put it together.
Right? And this is different from, scholarly debate, or I think it's this. We talked about this hot set versus rinpit set. You have different scholars who have different ideas about how we should transliterate that. This is, I don't know how to read it, but I'm going to kind of let you think that I know how to read it. And that particular piece is not labeled in the museum, so I'll show you. We'll zoom out. Allows me to zoom out. So, it's not labeled in English, but it's labeled by the original carvers in Middle nTr. And that's why I said when I first got there, I was like, oh, there's no label on some of these. Like when I went to the first temple in Petsu, I was like, shit, I can read this.
Yeah.
It is labeled. So if I'm looking for a label to the side, you won't see that, but it's labels written there by the original carvers. So here I am, side by side, and you notice that on neither side is there a label, but if you know how to read Middle nTr, so imagine now the four of us go there, right? So now we have some background, and as we get deeper into it, we'll be better with various types of text, offering text, which is what our textbook is looking at. Also, there are texts for, historical texts. That's like the Merenptah Stela. So this is the ruler Merenptah, who was able to defeat the so-called Sea peoples. So they came, he was able to, defeat them. So in the brothers, talking about who this is, there were so many great things that Merenptah did, but we're talking about Amenemhat. Whereas we should be talking about Merenptah. So that first stela, which was, where Israel was mentioned, that's his stela, Merenptah stela, right? Where it says, all these enemies of African people, he lists them, including Israel, their seed is destroyed, blah, blah, blah. That this is what we're talking about. And again, this is looking at the ruler as a guarantor of Ma'at. So here you have this coalition of all these Asiatics who are coming here. He's able to repel them, again, using military strategy, set up, the archers on this side, set up the archers on this side. As they come into the kill zone, blah, blah, decimates them, goes and takes it to them, wipes them out. And the Sea peoples have been decimating all these other civilizations throughout the Mediterranean. They came up to the wrong one. Merenptah don't play that. Right? But this is what we have to know, this is what we have to read. So it's not enough to say, look, we invented writing, blah, blah, blah. What did we do? What did we write down? So he lists what he did, how he defeated them. And then there was another text in the same thread. And y'all should all be on a BBC Mikasa. I know Yao is on a BBC Mikasa, but there's so much information here, and there's so much conversation amongst some of the best minds that we have as African people. It's an all-black think tank, right? So all the information is here, but if you say, I'm only going to use Facebook or any white site, and basically people have like meme-based research. So what they say is based on what a meme that they saw on Facebook. So there was a sister who was in the program, she was like, yeah, the beginning of the year is in the spring. And I know the meme that she saw that said that. It's a Hebrew Israelite-based meme. And I was like, the rising of Sopdet, which is, talking about when you harvest, and that's what it is now. If you look at Homo War, if you look at Ujura, it's the same exact thing. That's the beginning of the year in Kemet. So if you don't have actual research, or if you're not in a place where you can access the actual research, all you get is what meme somebody happens to put out on Facebook or WhatsApp, and that's your source of information. So we gotta do better. And then this one too is a similar thing that we've looked at, the name of Ramesses II, and it's the same brother. And he's known for doing tours. He kind of took over from Dr. Ben, who used to do tours. And I'll show you here. So at the 203 mark, he refers to E, the reed leaf, which is Gardner's M17. The first glyph as Emin, N-Emin as Mary. Then he refers to N36 as Amen, when really that part is the Mary part. There's what's called graphic transposition. So in order to get everything on the line and looking nice, you instead, even though you would say Mary Amen, you put the E part first because it's long. Then you stack the Min, then the N, and then the Mary underneath. This is what we'll see here. So let me show you at the 203 mark. And you'll see, because you know the letter E, and then we've also just seen Mary in Mariam Pata's name.
The dog figure, Ursa, Ma'at, Ra,
You found okay?
Murray,
He said that's Murray.
Sa, Ra.
Right? So this is the Mary part. This is the E or I, if you prefer, part of men. Right? So if we're not clear, we memorized that the name is Mary Amen. So we would expect, like in English, for the Mary part to come first and then the Amen part to come next. However, this is graphic transposition that we talked about before. So here's the A or the E, depending on what system you choose to transliterate men, and then the Mary is here. Right? So again, this is why you have to, because even, and this was the whole debate between Chimwezu and Ikriama, right?
Yeah.
So Chimwezu was like, if you're on my team, and we would say he's on our team, right? He's pro-black, whatever. He said, Chimwezu's point is, if you're on my team, and I expect you to give me the right information, if you're an expert. And Ikriama was like, no, you need to access it yourself. And this is the illustration of why you need to access it yourself. Because let's say you're an expert on it, I trust you, you're on my team, but it's like the word GD. So I've received it, I eat it. I don't know whether you washed your hands before. So that's the word for belief in G. So, GD, right? But if I have access to do my own food, I know everything that's in it. I know the recipe. I went to the garden myself. I planted the food. I know it's non-GMO, all of the information. So the more you get into the language, the more access you have to knowing all the parts that went into the meal, right? As opposed to I go out to a shop and I buy it. I hope that it's really vegetarian. I hope it's vegan.
You cannot be assured.
You said the tilapia was grown on your own vid. I hope there's no mercury in the water. You understand? So again, accessing the language directly gets us beyond. I hope that this is right too. And again, everything other than that he said is right, but this lets you know, at least at that point in time, this brother didn't know how to read it. He memorized this is what it is, right? But you know, this is what we're working with. And then this is Theophilo Benga on learning Metanetia, and he is saying you got to know the language from the inside out, right? Otherwise, like a colleague whose name I won't mention, you'll say everything started in Greece in 300 BC. But we know we had our own records, but you don't know any of those records. You can't cite a single one of those records. You don't know the names of anybody, but you know the names of all these random Greek folks. When all of this was being written down, everything that I'm talking about was written down before there was anything called Greece or Rome on the world stage. Right. So that's that. The other thing that we were looking at was the email I sent to you on hot sep versus rinpet sep. That's a slightly different thing because here you have scholars, all of them can read it, obviously, but they have different opinions on how to transliterate. Let me see if I can pull that up. Charlie, your self-learning is slow. I think I may have posted this at, I'll give it to you guys too. Now, like I said, number question here in church, I want to give a small explanation. If you don't find say we, I said to the hot set. Now, if you don't say in the text, you've seen this as the regnal year. That's how it's translated. Now, everybody is saying it means the year of the reign, but then you have different ideas on how to transliterate it. So Gardner, who is considered to be the most authoritative grammar, even though it's seen as slightly outdated. So there have been other grammars that have come out, but everybody uses Gardner's system. Let me say everybody who really is doing it. Other people use Budge, which is really not a system, but that's a sidebar. So all of these are examples, and I won't go to them because self-learning is slow. But I can forward it to you, or you can forward it to them.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Each one has this transliterated as hot set, right? And these are other links, and it's just convenient to show the online ones that show it as Renpet set. Yet me one of the that I was saying that you can see both of them in different books. Yeah, basically, you move back to the home for said a Renpet set nafi in simple and chassis and home and a hot set that you can choose one because some authors say that it's Renpet set, but the dictionary says that it's hot set. So even the Dixon dictionary that we're using is following the Gardner system and it's saying that it's hot set. And this is an example. So we looked at it here, it's saying hot set or Renpet set. And then we have mswt and then Henmit. So the 28th year per, this is under him in, and we're also looking at in the book it says in the person of, but generally this is translated as His Majesty, right? Because it's a ruler, not just any random person. Under His Majesty, mswt, the king of Upper and Lower Kemet, Ni Ma'at Ra. So this is Amenemhat III. That's who he was saying that this was. But you have to, when you see the name, you would know automatically, who this is. Ankjet, so life throughout space, throughout eternity, forever. Yeah. Yet to him, as you said, Majesty, and also how much it said in the person of. They tell him to say so I was saying that you often see it as Majesty, even though in the textbook we're using, they translate it as in the person of. But I gave other examples of scholars who translate it as Majesty. Let me say, I don't know, you actually in concept say, I'm if I say in the person of. So I was saying that's the one that I think that we would follow, even though the particular textbook we're looking at is translating it as in the person of. And again, the justification is that one, you have other scholars who do it, but two, it's in a royal context, and that better captures that royal context as under His Majesty. We're talking about the year of the reign of this person. The reason why we will accept that is because it's again about a ruler. And it's not just any random person. So that's the reason why if we're translating it into English, we would look at it in a way that shows the respect and the honor that will be given. And then, so and finally, I could offer titre bese and nine homo So I was saying that there are 4 different authors that have different ideas about how it should be transliterated. So Allen, who's writing around 2000 in this version, he has Renpet Hesbet. Collier Manley, that's what we're looking at, has Renpet set. Hanig has Renpet set. Gardner, who that's the system of transliteration we're using, who has the authoritative grammar, and then the dictionary, all of them have it as hot set. So I say, I haven't said no ability to become awesome. So I was saying, the following week we'll talk about this. But again, we have 2 different things going on. One, you have a debate amongst people who are steeped in the language. Unfortunately, these examples are non-Africans who are steeped in the language. Then another one is, all right, here you have an African who's on your side, and who all the points he's making are right, they're correct. However, if you don't have the language, it would be very easy for somebody who is not on your side to just cut you down and say, all y'all African, one of y'all just making stuff up, y'all don't know your stuff, blah, 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 and then that's the end of your argument, right? So these are some of the things that it pays to keep in mind, and all of this is going back to the point that it is in your interest, and this was Ayakweama's point, to know the language yourself. So Chinweizu was saying not everybody can learn a language. Okay, fine. But if you can, and Ayakweama's point, so Chinweizu was saying I'm old. And Ayakweama was saying, young buck, how old are you? I'm 73. He's like, you're a small child. I'm 77 and a half. So Ayakweama was like, if I can learn it, by all means, you can learn it. So we're seeing an illustration of this point of why it's necessary to learn it. If not everybody can learn it, okay, you need to make sure that the people on your team have a mastery of the language from the inside out. But even better than that, you can rank the stuff. Even better than that is you know the language, I know the language, you know the language, you know the language. Now let's have a scholarly debate about what this particular term or concept is. Right? Yeah. And even in all these different ones about the Ren pit set, hot set, whatever, they're not even debating so much what the translation is. We're all saying it means the rain or year. Yeah. But now it comes down to, well, how are we going to look at the vocalization and transliteration of what it was initially? And that's a better level to have a debate on than we don't even know. Look at the pretty pictures.
Some pictures.
Yeah, so I think that's the point I wanted to close out on, and I think it's a very important point, and I hope that comes through. Because otherwise we're looking at him and we're saying, I'm in a map. Meanwhile, he's in the right section for what his actual, you have the Mariam Stela, you have Amenhotep III and Queen Tia, the huge ones that are in front. All these are in the right period. Whereas on this side of the museum, you have the Middle Kingdom. So here we're talking about New Kingdom stuff, and it's right in with all the New Kingdom stuff. So even the arguments that you make, it's a legit argument, but you're undercutting yourself. And there's another video of some, I guess, Arab or white, whatever, who's critiquing the video, but it's clear even that person doesn't know how to read. Because they're saying, oh, he's acting like it's a conspiracy that he put it here. Obviously, it can't be a conspiracy, well, but they're not catching it that this isn't Amenhotep III. So here you have somebody who is talking about it who isn't reading it, but then even the person who's critiquing it can't read. So it's like, what are we even really doing here? So, we have to take it to the next level. That's the point. Any ideas, thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
I just commend you, honestly. How I'm seeing it is that once people know how to read the Medellin, then we can finally be set free.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. This is way bigger than, adding this course to the university. It's way, how I'm seeing it is way bigger than that.
And this is the thing, because when we were first talking, you were saying you're interested in the spirituality.
Yeah.
Now, if you're interested in the spirituality, there are people who just take Buddhism and Hinduism and they say Kemetic meditation. They learn yoga through the Indian system, they say Kemetic yoga. But if you have, and this is the same point that I made at that time, what is their source, right? They're not telling you, I actually just learned the Hindu one and I saw these images and I thought it was similar, so I said, let's take the positions that we see on the monuments and say that this is Kemetic version. All right, if you're honest and you're saying that that's what you did, okay. But if we're actually trying to get into the spirituality, again, this is breaking the chains that links African ideas to European ones or Eurasian ones to bring it, the Indo-Aryans into it too, breaking the chain that links them to listen to the voice of our ancestors without European interpreters. or even African interpreters who may not really have the depth of knowing what it is. So if we want to know about spirituality, what did we write down about how we make sacrifice and why we do it? We wrote about libations and why we do it. Let's go to what our ancestors, they said, we want you to know this. This is so important. I'm going to drag a boulder for hundreds of miles, carve a foot into the stone, just so that you can know our spirituality. And as opposed to doing that, we say, oh, well, I learned yoga at the mini mall, and I'm just going to say it's a comedic version of it. You understand? We have to get much more serious about this. So for me, I got a chance to study at undergrad, and then I was sent to go and get the contemporary languages to make these connections. So really having my children is what really forced me to get back into the mswt, because I was like, hey, y'all got to get it from the jump. I was sent to get the contemporary, and now it's time to actually put this together and link these back together. So I was like, yo, it's time. So you can go online, you can see my daughter learning mswt, from age of 3, showing her the uniliteral, showing her how to write it, whatever. Because she has to, it's not necessarily, even though she will do this, we're working on a translation of Instruction with Tahotep and Chi. But part of it is just so that from young, it's just regular. This is what black people do. What else do we do but mswt? So then by the time she gets my age, she should just be off the chain. So from where I am now is I'm not done in my own journey. That for me, where I'm at is to, decipher various texts. All the ones that are going into the book are mainly historical texts, but then there are also mathematical texts. Then there are also medical texts. Then there are all these different genres to really steep yourself in. So each one of those, and this is what my mswt teacher taught me when we were in undergrad. He was like, every single profession, every single genre is like a different language. So if you look at engineers, they have their own jargon, right? And if you just walk into engineering school and you think you don't understand anything they're talking about, you go to Atomic Energy Commission and they got their own stuff that they're talking about. So everybody is so-called speaking English in these different places, but the English that they're speaking there, nobody understands. The folks who are selling Kincaid off the roadside, right? The English instructor here, put them there, they have no idea what's going on. You understand? So his point was that there are thousands of languages inside of this one language. You understand? And it's very profound when you start to understand it like that, because as you get specialization in this, you're learning different languages, you're learning different jargons, lexicon, ways that they say it, how they abbreviate this one, how they're gonna slang this thing.
Biology. Microbiology, we have terms in jargons that you don't even get.
Chemistry, all of them.
Chemistry.
And this is the thing.
Chemistry, biology.
All of them are like,
It's English per se, but you still don't get it. I don't know, like an English student enter into the department and
you're a PhD in English, but you don't
forget
understand.
it.
But this is the thing, and this is part of the point that I did a presentation that's online too on neologisms, new word creation, that we say, oh, well, English borrows, so let's borrow. And I'm like, let's look at how English borrows. If you go to law, they've made decisions that anything that they create, any new terms that they create are going to be Latin. Perhaps Greek, but mainly Latin. If you go to sciences and math and all these other things, pi and whatever else, gamma, all of the things that they're saying we're going to choose Greek, right? So a lot of the jargon terminology is coming from Greek. Now, what do the Greeks have to do with these ox herders and sheep herders and chicken keepers in the British Isles? Very little to nothing. But they made a decision that we're looking at our white cousins exclusively. So if it's going to be science, astronomy, physics, we are going to borrow from our white cousins to create new stuff. And the point that Serhanta Job and Theophilo Benga made is that if we're saying that P perhaps or airway perhaps doesn't have some of these terms, let's not say, oh, let's just borrow from English. No, they're borrowing from their cousins. They're saying keep it in the family. We may have 10 words that come from other places, but when we are conscientiously saying we're going to create a new term, we're looking at our cousins, right? So let's look at what English is actually doing. And now let's look at, if we're saying that tree doesn't have these terms or every doesn't have these terms, let's look laterally. How did the Yoruba look at it, right? So we were talking about this sister last week, she did her PhD defense in tree. It's the first PhD defense ever done in the history of University of Ghana in tree. She wrote her thesis in tree and defended it in tree. Now, she was talking about TV and radio, and in her title, she left the word radio, she left the word TV, right? So, you know, I raised my hand, I was like, what are the words for tree and radio? It's just like, you know, and everybody's looking at me, all of them are native account speakers, everybody turns around,
Ghanaian travelers are looking at.
of course.
Whm
If I show you all the emails of people who ask me and stuff, and then people just come to my office and ask me what's this term. Because these are things that I think about. These are things that I've thought about since I first started learning tree, because I'm like,
Why?
why am I learning tree? And then I'll just say it can't do anything, right? So, you know, I was looking at one term for television is acheter fidye. Acheter fidye. So ache is to look at, and then tia is to listen, and fidye is machine. And then just, you can abbreviate and just say acheter. And I was looking at that one in comparison to what the Yoruba people chose for that. They say error mohun mawara, which is error is machine. It comes from raw, which is to engage in forging iron or any type of. So error is a thing that's forged. So that's the word for machine. Mohun, which is to take sound, mawara, and then stick it to an image, right? So when I said acheter, they were like, oh, that's not really what. I'm like, look at television. This is part of the problem is people don't even understand the English that they speak. Tele is to send, vision is image.
Yeah. They just put this together.
Send image, it's a very primitive thing that they've done, but we look at it, we're taught to look at it like this is some magical thing that's come down like a golden stool onto our thing, we must accept it because that's what it is. That is its proper name, it must be called that. It means send image, send a vision, right? So how is that more appropriate than acheter or mohun, right? So, but that's what they do because they are wedded to keeping these Eurasian concepts by hook or by crook. They'll say, oh, it's not, or it's too long, or it's whatever. It's like once people start using it, then they can choose their own abbreviations. When they started saying television, right, they would say television tube, because there's a tube in the patent. Then it comes all the way down to TV, right? That's the use, but they made a choice that tele, all right, we're going to go to our Eurasian cousins and pick tele. We're going to go here to our Eurasian cousins and pick vision, stick it together. Were there televisions in Greece or Rome?
No.
Absolutely not. But they decided that we have a method, we're going to choose our cousins, and that's it. And all you black people are just going to accept it, just like you accepted the borders of the Berlin Conference and anything else we tell you to do. What? And I was like, radio. Now, radio comes from radium. It's the same thing when you talk about a radius of a circle, and it just means a beam. So picture a beam of wood. How, and you know, you would act like this is something sacred. We must call it a radio. It's nothing but it just means a beam. So you picture a beam of light, a beam of waves or whatever. Beam is just taking a metaphor from this thing that you find at the door jam. And you've taken a metaphor from this thing. We're going to say everything that extends like that is a beam now. Now there's a word in tree in Quran, which is a beam, like a wooden beam. Now we don't have to just take a calc and say because they call it a beam, we have to call it a beam. You know, for here, people were using akasanoma because that was a brand and it's something that just keeps chirping. So what makes calling it a beam more sacred than referring to what it actually does, which is it keeps talking and keeps talking. In Yoruba, they say ero asoromagbesi, which is a machine that's used to speak and it doesn't wait for a response. Just keeps talking. You talk to it, it just keeps talking. It's the same concept for saying akasonoma. But anybody who you would say that to is who's quote unquote schooled, they'll say, no, you can't use that because radio, that's what it is. As though it's sacred to call it being.
Yeah.
You understand? But this is part of the mental enslavement and the conceptual incarceration that we get locked into. And it comes partially because we don't know our own resources of what are our sibling languages saying about it. So we say it's not nTr, we just have to go with it. It's not an Ewe, we just have. But imagine if you knew Wolof. You say, how did the Wolof people deal with this? How did the Mende people deal with this? How did the Yoruba people deal with this? How did the Bakongo people deal with this? How did the Amazulu deal with it? You can look at all the concepts, the ways that they chose to conceptualize it in their own languages and use that to do that, or you can borrow from them, which is, that's sacrilege. That's sacrilege. That's the end of the world if you borrow from an African. They're no better than me, right? What did the Ewe say about it? If I'm true, what did the Ewe say? Maybe they had a good concept. They have an African worldview, right? Yeah. So again, just like the Eurasians, we're willing to let them come in and encroach in our land, but let another African do that. No, World War III, that's it, it's on. Now we're just talking lateral. Imagine how much augmented our resources would be if we can look at our ancient languages, like Medu Neter. How did they say beam there? How did they say image and sound, and how did they combine it there? So I'm like, if you want to idolize English speakers, fine. But you need to actually look at what they're doing, right? Look at their methodology. And if you think that that's a good methodology, and it may be, then adopt their methodology and use it. Well, what we're doing is just saying we're going to take the English borrow, we're going to borrow. So let's borrow from English, right? They're very clear on who they are and who their enemies are.
That is what even makes like our African friends like not to even understand the English that they didn't claim they won't stick to.
Yeah.
When you have somebody like solipsism, like he doesn't just get it. But I went into the thing like so as like one, and then ip as like self. So it means everything that has to do with self. So egocentric. Or you're always about like yourself. So that is the meaning of the word solipsism. The system is just like the state of it. So like when you get this way, like they borrowed and then they made it so, and then that is the best way to even break the English language down, so you can understand it better than just trying to memorize it like that. It's solipsism, so it's solipsism.
A lot of these are coinages. A lot of what we take to be English are modern coinages. Right? Yeah. So it's like they're going to pretend like the Greeks had all of these various biological concepts as though they knew this tree in Africa and that, Bombax oxidaceus and whatever. It's like they had never seen any of this stuff. However, because you're colonizing all knowledge, you're going to pretend like they did. So anything new that comes in, it has to be filtered through a Greek lens. Right? So English is pan-Europeanism. It's a universal European language because you'll find French in there, you'll find Latin in there, you'll find Greek in there, you'll find Germanic in there, Anglo-Saxon, Old Germanic, everything. They're just piling it in there, and they're very selective, right? Especially when it comes to certain areas. Remember we talked about all the various languages that are part of the language. If it gets to science, hands off.
Especially law.
If it's law, hands off. We've decided which ones of our cousins are allowed to even
do law.
Be in there. You understand? So again, this is what I'm saying that we need to be doing. This is what we're actually doing right now. This is part of a step in the process. It's looking. So my PhD was on how new nouns are created from verbs, and all this is coming to the same thing. How do you conceptualize the world in your own best interest? Right? If you just are borrowing random from Europeans, you're saying, I'm giving up all rights that I have to look at the world in my own interest. Whatever you say goes. Right? As opposed to, we need to see if this thing is here, how should we describe it? We don't have a word for it. Let's look laterally. Let's look in the ancient times. And this is part of the reason why we don't know any other African languages other than perhaps the ones in our village and that we happen to come across. That's why. And that's also why we don't know any ancient languages. So then the only tools that you have, let's say if the only tool you have is a hammer, you treat everything like a nail. So we'll give you this hammer, if you happen to have gotten something from your village,
I go to meet a man with a gun. Still use the hammer.
the hammer, bam.
Use the hammer.
But any thoughts, ideas, reflections? We'll close out on
It's-
these points.
Doc, do you get support on this work? It's a great work doing by solo. Solo.
Let's go.
Ah.
You see all of our university colleagues here in the classroom, including those who just yesterday were saying that all of these things started 300 BC in Greek. It will be like saying you started your life last week.
Yeah.
What?
2 weeks ago. 2,000 years is such a short period of time once you
In
start
history.
understanding history. Like 2,000 years. I was just looking at a thing one of my colleagues sent out. It was saying people are looking at ancient traditions,
Yeah.
and the oldest thing it cited was 2,000 years ago. I said you should never call this ancient. This is recent. The
Contemporary.
classics department, if you're only looking at Greece and Rome, you should never call it a classics department. You should call it a recent department. A recent department. And we're waiting for the classics department to come. So in terms of support, this is why I've put all of my hopes on those of you young people who are students and who develop some level of passion about these things. Because those who have already gone through the system, they have been so starved of knowledge that at a certain point they don't want it anymore. They've built up their theories of Marxism based on African people didn't have any history before Europeans came. If you come with this about things that were going on 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, they have to shift everything that they've built on top of this sand. And it's easier to just leave your castle on the sand, even though you know eventually it will be taken away by the waves. It's like I've built up too much, I've put too much energy into this. For me to have to shift my entire paradigm onto solid rock now, I'll just go with it, right? You give them counter examples, they'll defend themselves.
This people, this older folks keep protecting the younger ones that you would want to like realign and then like educate right from the beginning. The older folks that will come together like with you or this kid's like, what is that guy telling you? What like did he just tell you that we had history like 10,000 years? Like don't listen to him, like listen to me, like.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like war between the older folks and then those of us coming to then like getting to know these things like this is how it shouldn't have been.
This is a thing, that type of mentality can only exist in the absence of knowledge, right? It thrives in the absence of knowledge. I was given a metaphor, it's like cancer that is able to grow and spread in a non-oxygenated environment, right? When you introduce oxygen into the system, the cancer starts to recede. Eventually it can be completely eliminated because it doesn't thrive in an oxygenated environment. So knowledge is like introducing oxygen into the bloodstream, right? A constant stream. So now this cancer of ignorance, it starts to go into remission, right? So now imagine somebody trying to tell you, yes, law began in Greece. You've already seen the Greeks who wrote Solon the lawgiver went to Kemet law. You know it, right?
Yeah.
So now for you to go along with it, you would have to literally be saying, I'm going to lie to everybody. I know it, I have the knowledge, but I'm just going to lie because funding, the Ford Foundation says start in Greece, so therefore, whatever. Which is a whole different decision from I just don't know anything else.
Some of us will have been challenged to bring in like where did you get your argument from, like what text? So we are waiting for this text to come to say like we can like here is it. You want to have a look? Yes.
The whole
Go read it for
The
yourself.
whole point of everything I've been saying is don't wait for the text. You have to be engaged in the language
We're the
yourself.
future. The children of the future.
Because what if I'm doing this whole text? What if I make a mistake? Right?
With
So
editing.
I need you to be my backup. I need you to be my backup. I need you to correct me. So one of the books, Sanhat, there was in the middle lecture, there was a mistake in the middle lecture, right?
Yeah.
And I caught the mistake because it was supposed to be to smite, right? Sheep, head, way, e, just like chief, shit. But the determinative that they had in the text was, so I had to go back to the text that they copied it from. It was supposed to be a young person with a stick to smite, because they're going from hieratic and then bringing it into the middle lecture. So I was looking, I was like, this can't be right. For it to be to smite, it's vigorous action, striking. But instead of that one, in that original text that had transcribed it, it had the wrong one. It had an old person with a stick. So therefore, the mistake in this one is going to translate into your text. That's the one that Aikoyama had done. And I was saying that maybe his daughter had done it wrong in the typesetting, but no, it was in the text, and she wasn't to blame. It was in the text that she had gotten it from. But this is why each one of us has to be, it's a good thing to critique each other and say, no, you got that one wrong. Right? And the deeper you get into it, the deeper you get into it, the better it is, because we want to build up everything that we're building on truth, on Mahat. Right? It's not enough to go and study karate and say, committed karate now. Study Buddhism and say, all right, committed Buddhism now. If they didn't even keep the image of the Buddha black, how much you think they're going to preserve the sanctity of what Buddha taught? Right? Let's go to the original text and see what was written down. There were black people in India. Let's go and read what they wrote down, because they did write it down just so that you can get rid of some of these adulterations that are going to come into it. Right? Okay, so I think we'll close on that point. When I say Medu, you say Necha. Medu.
Necha.
Medu.
Necha.
Like that.
Woo!
Was it like black power?
Yeah.
Like walking out so.
Yeah.
Black power, say, look at it.
It's good because, anything that helps you understand who your enemy is great. Anything that helps you understand who your enemy is good. This is why it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
If your goals are to not know who your enemy is, then you would think Barack Obama is great.
Yeah.
If your goal is to know who your enemy is, then you say Donald Trump is right on time. Right?
This morning I got angry with one Christian folk, like Antichrist. They said Trump is the new Antichrist. I said, hey, you shut up. When this guy came, George Bush came, he said he was Antichrist. When Obama came, this is the final Antichrist. Now he's gone. Now it's Trump. You want to now every year they put in, like, you first have to create, like, what you say, like, they create the fear, or they create a problem, and then people will, like, want to surrender up their faith, their thinking, their rationality, their rights, their privilege, in order for somebody to save them. So now it's now Donald Trump. If you don't stop that thing, if you don't stop that thing, boy, like, we have serious case in this, like, that was it.
God and the devil is the same thing.
And then he
That's
just
when I was around there. So this is the thing. All of those concepts,
about devil and God being
all
different.
of them are parts of Eurasian mythology, and everything in between, whether it's the Easter Bunny, Cupid, leprechauns, whatever they have,
Lucifer.
angels, all of those from here all the way down to here, all of that is Eurasian mythology. And I remember I was in a lecture at my parents' bookstore. It's Nana Eko Butreku. He has the book 500 Years of European Behavior. And on the front it has like nuclear bombs exploding and all types of stuff. And in it he said we have to kill God. I thought it was so profound. The person, after he finished talking, somebody got, he didn't really mean that, everybody. He was like, I was like, no, he's right. He's like, all of these Eurasian concepts, all of them have to go out the window.
Yeah.
It's not that this one is good and that one's bad, but this one's good.
Right.
All of them got to go.
Yeah.
And we have to understand, how did our African ancestors understand the world? Right? Because their thing is, remember, diametric opposites. One thing is good, right? The other thing is black, bad. and everything has to be sorted out that way. How did we see the world? So just throw all of that into the ash can of history and start off with an understanding of how do we see it in our own best interest.
Which
Complementary.
is holistic.
The guy just got me like angry like this one like so why do you like when on earth if you claim these are prophecies, these are like revelations, when like would this be accurate and specific? So you always want to be changing it. Just get to know that this is not true, and it's never truth in itself. But like he's still holding on to. I wish one
That's
day.
Christians for you.
And when you say it, they say the Holy Spirit hasn't opened your eyes.
Exactly.
The Holy Spirit hasn't opened your eyes. That is why. So we'll pray for you so that one day when your eyes. I said, nah, it's not one day for me. One day for you. Like one day you will get to know the truth, and then it will be too late for you to like handle. And I don't know what you will do. It's not like I was a pagan before I got to know like I was in this Christian thing. Blah 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 blah. Like there's always something missing. You can't just get in the Christianity thing, and then when you say it, they kind of like, oh, faith, belief.
And
I was telling them one thing to like when later I was like the only way you can believe into something like have faith into something is when you think of it and the rationality, even the logic is possible. It's possible and logic. That is when you can. Now I don't see the thing. I just don't see anything, and you're asking me to believe like no.
Well,
just believe.
that I disagree.
Connected.
I feel like you don't need rationality
Yeah, you
all the time. You know.
But in their case,
and that shows
There
our
are ways of
African
knowing.
worldview, like it's holistic. You know, there's not
There
the
are ways
rational
of
that's
knowing.
superior to the irrational. Rational and irrational
No.
is the same thing.
yeah.
You know, so. But I understand what you mean when it comes
Yeah.
to them. You know,
Yeah.
because now it's like you don't even make sense
It
anymore.
doesn't
It's
make
like,
sense.
you've thrown out your own mind, you know, and you're operating solely on ego because of your beliefs.
Then without book.
This is the thing.
Without book.
This is the thing. Even when anytime we speak English, you have to assume that certain things even exist, right?
Yeah.
So Freudian concepts of ego, you know, the theory of mind, all of these are words that are steeped with lots of conceptual baggage, right? So anytime we're not talking about you are dealing with your own ba, with your own ka. We're not talking about you're dealing with an ak ikwa. We're talking about all of these concepts of mind as though it really is something. We're talking about ego. So that's their way of looking at the world. They conceptualize the world, this really exists. And as long as we're speaking the language, we're accepting that this thing exists. This thing called ego. In any African thing, we're just going to try to find an equal sign and say, well, ego is like the African, this thing. But when we're looking at our own languages, we're not accepting all of those basic assumptions that, you know, this theory of id, ego, that's somebody's conceptual framework that this is the best way to conceive of the human being, right? Right?
Yeah.
Whereas we have all these concepts of the human being, right? We could talk about sum, hom, okra, moja, nTr, you know, all these various aspects that make up the human being. And then we can look laterally, just like how we're talking about with these neologisms. We can say, well, what do the Yoruba say about it? You know, what do the Senufu say about it? What do Libya say about it? What do whoever say about it? But we don't. How can you choose that if you've never heard of it? I only know from my own village, and then what Freud said, and then that's all I can choose from, and that's all my reality. Remember the quote, Dr. Khalid Muhammad? He said, "The one who controls the diameter of your knowledge determines the circumference of your experience." Right? So if I only know this much knowledge, if I only have this much knowledge, then everything of my experience, everything I assume to be correct is going to be in this little thing. But what if my knowledge is here? I know all of this about every single African people. I know all. We don't know that. But the bigger this goes, the more we can even choose from. Right? Otherwise, we choose my village for it. Right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why that's all we have to choose from. But it doesn't have to remain that way. Remember we say a cow grazes where it is tied?
Yeah.
No.
Remember we say that the dog doesn't prefer bones to meat, it's just that no one ever gives him meat? Yeah, so
And is that serious?
right?
Yeah.
This is why we are going for the meat of some of these things. Because
Painting is so deep.
it's off the chain.
Yeah.
You know that this is my thing. My everything is became
Even
And the
it
black,
being black.
the blackness of it is really
Yeah.
beautiful, like beautiful, like.
And the mandala, the circle, the dot in the middle.
So the kingdom,
Sacred
time.
geometry there, the color.
And great.
this is everything.
Yeah.
This is how the universe started and
Yeah.
continues. This is how individual life starts and continues.
Yeah.
This is how a single day goes through. This is everything. And I think maybe, I know it's that you had just had it, Tom in the Black Experience.
So yeah.
Kukiao says
Everything there.
nothing exists that does not follow this. There's not a single thing that exists that doesn't follow this.
Wow. Did you tell him to paint that, or you just?
It's like I know.
This is Dr. Kama.
Yeah,
I think he'll appreciate this. I've been wearing this every day since like 20 years.
Wow.
I actually had to replace the bag because the first one I sewed these on. I did the design and everything.
Yourself?
And then the old bag I had got ruined because I had it for so long, wear it every day for like 15 years. So I had them do another bag about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, you gotta get this front part off, cut it out, and then I'll
Stick it.
get it on here.
This would also live
Yeah,
this
I wouldn't
time.
have been able to tell.
This bag would also live this time.
Yeah.
And come back in another form. Like, this bird up there, I think that's my latest bag up there. I think it's that's what we're talking when we talk about Kepara, right? Neb Kepara, the Lord of the transformations of the sun. The things that are made, that the sun is made of, are the same things that this is made of. When you get down to what we're talking about, Atum, the creator deity, what they call the atom, all these are the building blocks that everything is made of. So this is a transformation of the sun, your transformation of the sun, all of that you see.
So it keeps coming back as us, and then I'll come back as little yams.
Yeah. Dominant.
Oh, I should ask you.
Yeah, this is it, man.
Yeah, that is it.
So I wonder if I just keep teaching the truth, I keep getting gifts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You keep
symbols I have-
giving out gifts, so it's not too.
That's
Yeah,
impressive, right?
Yeah.
The sandals I'm wearing too, some of my students gave me these. They said, yes, thank you, Dr. Kalma.
Right. I love that. You just touched it.
Your hair is so nice.
No, this is like some deep painting right there. Yeah.
I'll post that video on the YouTube because common Black American. Yeah, and they actually make the Dekenga signs and all of that. Yeah, it's
This is our thing, man.
Lodge deep into all of our subconscious mind and we all forgot. I remember.
And its IA is going to get front row seats to tune for Asante MS, you know.
Okay.
No,
Let's
I'm asking,
video
do you know if you
another
are going to?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, I haven't heard anything.
So that
Did you hear
video
something like that?
Yeah, that
wasn't?
No, it was.
It was?
It's the 1 week celebration.